The beanbag shotgun used in its niche is very effective, but you gotta be really sure of your aim. Hi everyone, welcome to today's badge cam lesson here at Active Self-Protection. I'm your host, John Correa.
I'm your co-host, Mike Williver. Today's video comes to us from a hospital parking lot in Los Angeles, California.
Today's video is brought to us by Barrel Block. Barrel Block is an excellent dry fire training aid that we've used for years and recommend. It provides an easy-to-see indicator that your firearm is empty and safe for dry practice. It comes in all service calibers and can be installed and removed in seconds without disassembling your gun. It's an inexpensive, easy way to give more margin for safety, so go pick one up today. We're at a hospital here and you can see surveillance video shows this guy show up with a manual edger. I feel like I'm 12 years old again and, out front of my house trying to keep my dad's lawn nice. But he is whacking into the doors of the hospital where apparently they won't let him in. He's been a problem and they've closed it. So, of course, they are going to call the local constabulary to deal with our errant landscaper. And the officers are going to show up in numbers. We have badge cam audio, so let's listen in.
I need you to drop the stick, my man. Boss, can you drop the stick for me? Can you drop the stick for me? Drop the stick, my man. Drop the stick. Drop the stick. Just drop the stick.
Initial PR call to inform the metal pole has metal prongs on the pole. Are you pulling down 740 equipment?
85 Roger. Drop the stick, my man. Boss man, I need you to drop the stick.
If you go watch the original, LAPD officers talked to this guy for 15 minutes trying to get him to put the edger down and, figure out what's going on with him. He's non-responsive to them. He's clearly not in his right mind. Let's continue to listen in as he is going to push the action.
It is the second, so.
Stand by.
Hey, put it down. Back ready. Hey, any class?
Be back ready.
Be back ready. Stand by.
Arrest him within. Don't let him get the stick again. Don't let him get the stick again. With the stick. Don't let him get the stick. With the stick.
It hurt.
I got the relax.
Please feel my line. It hurts. You killed me with an actual gun this time. Of course, I'm bleeding, man. They killed me with a gun. You're late. I'm taking my butt for real because they think I stink when I don't. I'm not gay for real.
Relax.
Please, someone help me. He's touching my scar. It hurts.
Sit up.
After getting him in cuffs, they picked him up and literally walked him around the block to the emergency entrance of the hospital. The beanbag hit him in the chest and cracked 2 of his ribs, gave him a bruise on his lung and another one on his heart. I don't even know if they're going to charge him with anything here. I couldn't find any charges in the news stories I've linked in the description. And the officers, I think their use of force was in policy. We'll talk about it in the lessons. Mike, fun fact, we actually have a video on Active Self-Protection Extra of me testing some of the beanbag rounds through a 12 gauge. And we thought for just a bit about seeing if somebody wanted to take a test run on one of those. And then we decided, the liability on that is probably too much. And stuff like this is why. The one crazy thing, Mike, here about real life self-defense incidents is no 2 of them are the same. I don't think I've ever seen somebody attack a hospital with a manual edger before.
You were always saying, John, the old joke for us is, hey, you're sitting at roll call that morning, you're an LAPD officer, you're thinking about what might happen during your day, and nowhere on your bingo card was a crazy guy with an old school manual edge trimmer beating the front door of, this is a hospital, I think, as well, right? Anyway, no one sees that coming, and it occurs to me if more people used manual landscaping tools, it wouldn't be so hard for you to record from your home.
Well, I mean, that might be a thing. He's making jokes about the fact that my neighborhood has landscaping crews with power tools all over the place all the time. It's true. Anyways, I think that also what we see here, okay, so if this guy gets access to this place and hits somebody with that manual edge trimmer, is that going to do them great bodily harm? Yeah, it is. It's kind of the lowest level of great bodily injury, but you boop someone on the snoot with that, you could put an eye out, you could break a bone for sure, do some serious stitches or whatever. So yeah, this is the kind of thing you call the cops for, and stay behind the door if you can.
Absolutely. Whoever is inside there, I don't know if they saw this coming or if that door was already locked, but assuming somebody came over there and said, hey, there's a crazy guy, let me lock this door. Great job, by the way. We saw that recently in another video where there were employees in back of what looked like a restaurant, and a crazy guy comes around the corner with a gun and they're like, bye, and they all run inside and lock the door. So this sort of awareness, John, is what we're hoping to see from the average citizen, so they can avoid having to interact with this guy at all. Moving on, here we are around the corner now. This is a great example of when a less lethal tool is absolutely the right tool for the job, John. This guy is going to have to charge meters, yards or meters to get to them. They're using the car for cover. They're doing everything right. And what they're trying to do here is avoid having to shoot this guy.
I love this idea. And I think it starts with them giving this a little bit of room to breathe. He's not actively attacking somebody right now. There's nobody else around him, so we can stay at some distance because, again, distance gives me discretionary time. Distance buys you time. Time buys you options. So that discretionary time lets you talk, and they talk to this guy for 15 minutes. And the things only change when he closes the space and takes up the discretionary time. So I really want to commend these officers for, number one, getting their less lethals out, and number two, for using their discretionary time to do what they can. Number three, even more if you go watch the original, the number of times they talk to him and try to, make contact. Now, but of course, the perp has the final decision-making power here and can decide, no, I won't be de-escalated. I'm going to go get you. But you want to put yourself in a place that, number one, before God, number two, before the law, you can say, I did everything I could to avoid having to use force. I tried to talk this guy down.
Yeah, a lot of people complain, John, in our comment section about the fact that we would prefer that an incident end whenever possible with nobody being killed or grievously injured. That's just how we are at Active Self-Protection. If this incident or any other incident involving the police can end with nobody dying or having any new holes, we think that's a good outcome. In this case, this guy, who knows what's going on with him? Could be off his meds. We just don't know. But it's a human being on the other end of your sights of this thing, at the other end of the sights of your pistol, AR, or less lethal tool. And, you should treat this person exactly the same way you would treat a family member or want them treated by law enforcement. You and I both, John, have had and have people in our family that have some mental health issues. And so it hits home for us that, we just pray that if something else ever went down out in the world, we weren't there to help out, that law enforcement would treat those people the way that we would want our loved ones treated. And I feel like that's what they did in this case.
I really agree. So listen, now when we think about what happened with this officer, he decides in this moment, this guy's walking me down, and now he's decided to end the discretionary time. And so is this the right time? Now you can see over on the far right that we have an officer with lethal cover. We have another officer with a less lethal over there. The officer with the lethal, maybe a little bit casual in this one, but I've still got a little bit of space. Now's the time to employ the beanbag shotgun. And, we joke about this, like it's a Pokemon. He employs the beanbag shotgun, and it is highly effective in this case.
Yeah, this is what they're for. I've seen them used in the field, and they are extremely effective. The only time I've seen them not work is on someone who is under the influence of a narcotic that blocks their pain response, PCP being chief among them. But, when somebody's on PCP, it doesn't matter what you employ. You can shoot them with a real gun, and frequently they won't necessarily feel it. They don't have any pain response. In this case, one shot with a beanbag took care of the problem. And if anyone's wondering, hey, why did he pull the trigger at this point? They could have pulled the trigger a lot sooner. The minute they've given the command, hey, drop the weapon that's in your hand, or else you might get, fill in the blank, tased, beanbag gun may be employed against you. The minute they do that and the person's not complying, they have the ability to pull the trigger at any point. He just waited until he thought, okay, this is as good a time as any. I don't want this guy getting any closer to me with that thing in his hand. So he did what he did, and I think the timing was perfect.
I mean, the only other option here is to use the less lethal shotgun and go cudgel sticks with the guy and like, square off like they're both privates in the Marine Corps in boot camp. And you're not going to do that. And not when you have a distance tool like a beanbag shotgun. And this is exactly why a less lethal tool is great. Now, I do want to say as well, it works because this guy's tool is short range, right? He's got a edge trimmer in his hands. If he'd had a knife or a machete or a baseball bat, these are the kind of things that are short range tools. If he has a long range tool, bow and arrow, a javelin, a gun, then it becomes less able to do that because he can reach out and touch you from a significant distance. So what we want to stay, if we can, we want to stay in contact with him with our weapons and have him out of contact with his. And that's what the officer did. Kudos to him, and it was highly effective. Now remember, a beanbag shotgun, the beanbag round is pain compliance. That's 100% what it is. It hurts like the dickens, and you never want to take an exposure to one of these. It absolutely can do damage, just like it did to this guy. So, we don't play around with these in training at all. We shoot them at dummies, not at human beings. Now, taking a different angle here, I want to mention briefly that we see at least 3 officers with shotguns out here, the beanbag shotguns, and only one of them has become the master of the sling. And we're going to talk about the sling master later. But I also want to say, I think that our officers coming up have used the curb as kind of a line to get in there. And I really like that they are trying to stay on line, but also as the suspect moves, that line's going to move. So you always got to watch who is got priority of fire. Here, again, I think LAPD did a really good job, Mike, of giving the officer in the closest position priority of fire.
Yeah, and I can almost guarantee you LAPD practices as my agency practiced, and if your agency isn't practicing it, they should, being online, being at a live range and practicing moving, stopping, giving a command to your fellow officers or agents or deputies to say, hey, we're going to move 2 steps in, whatever, stay online, and you all start moving at the same time. The point being to avoid somebody getting in front of someone else. In this case, the line is sort of diagonal, so it isn't super clean, but you can see these guys did a really great job of staying in a relatively single file until they move in and get close enough to actually put hands on the guy. So kudos to them. The first order of business, there's a weapon on the ground. It's not in its hands anymore. Let's get that out of play. And we no longer need any of our weapons. At that point, we can go hands on and put the guy in custody. So fantastic job on their part tactically of getting in there, using the tool and then moving. And we've seen times when officers will tase somebody and stand there as the person's on the ground disabled from a taser. Well, if the taser's working, that's the point of that, is to disable them for the 5, 8, 10 seconds or whatever. Get in there, go hands on, and get them in custody. That's exactly what they did here.
And notice, the guy who had the free hand in order to get the tool out and away from everyone is the guy who is the sling master. He's the guy who's actually used the sling. The other officer has to have both hands on his shotgun in order to control it and to maintain his muzzle in a direction of least consequence. So guess what? That sling is important. It just takes a second to throw it over your head and swim into a sling. But that gave him those options, and it's almost like that's how it's designed, and that's why they put them on the gun. And I know we talk about slings all the time because it's a simple thing. Fix that sucker. I love here that they really showed him compassion too, especially if you go watch the original. They stand him up, they get him into cuffs, of course, check him over. Okay, man, let's get you over to the hospital here real quick. And you're okay, buddy. Let's go figure that out. Can you walk over here? And they realize this guy needs some help. And I think, gosh, man, I got to say here, pretty good job. We've given the LAPD a hard time a couple times, Mike, when things haven't gone right. I think it's only worthwhile that we say kudos to them when they do a really good job of getting this guy over to the spot. I will say, though, that you got to recognize the guy ended up having 2 cracked ribs, a bruised lung, and a pulmonary bruise as well. And so if you miss a little high with that beanbag shotgun, it can be lethal force in a big hurry.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about this again, John, in our pre-brief before we hit the record button here. And yeah, center of mass, it's a target possibly for these things, but you really want to be shooting for the solar plexus. Shoulders are another option, but again, if the person moves at the last second, they can catch one in the head or the face, and that could prove fatal depending on where you hit them. So officers, kudos to you, LAPD, for getting in there. First of all, taking the time to not rush in and start blazing away, to take the time to talk this guy down, to have a plan, to be well trained. All the things that you did ended up with this guy having a little bit of temporary pain, right? But being able to go wherever it is he lives at the end of the day. I don't think he was charged with anything, but these LAPD officers did a fantastic job and covered their ass.